the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Hey everybody, this is Brian, and this is The Crazy Life. No Jen this week because she's apparently celebrating her birthday all week or doing some other crazy shenanigans. So I decided to reach out to our pal Henno, who was with us a few episodes ago, and see if he would join us, and he accepted. So, hey Henno, how you doing?
Hi. I was for a second there, I was like, hi, I'm Jen.
Over on Salty Language, we did that one time when we had Tate on the show. Our friend T, Soundboard T, sat in for an episode when she wasn't there. Like yeah, and I was like, I'm Brian. Tony goes, I'm Tony. And then he's like, I'm Tate. So it was... That's great,
that's
though.
Good.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, so Jen should be back next week. But so I guess I got to go through the normal format stuff here. How's your week been? How's time been since you were with us last, I guess?
Actually, it's I had one of those days where where the headache starts?
Yeah.
Like right about midday.
Yep.
And I'm like, and I think it's I'm done. I'm still dealing with the aftermath of me screwing things up at work, and it's just emotional for me.
Yeah, sure.
It's just that and today it's not going to be 100% fixed for a while, so I just have to live in discomfort for a while. It's just the way it's going to be, and it really hit again today, and then the head starts to hurt, and it's like, oh man, and so then it came down to, okay, looking forward to the bright things. What could I, and tonight it was like, okay, great, I got my men's group that I always meet with, and then I get to podcast. And, this is perfect. So
yeah, I run into that a lot. Like I'll wake up on a Friday because we record Salty Language on a Friday a lot of times. And I'll wake up and just not really be into it. Just like I'm not on, or however you want to word it. It's just not feeling it, or with a headache or whatever. And I'm just like, nope, I'm not going to let this stop my, like, this is, well, this is the right podcast to talk about it. But it's like in my life right now, nothing makes me happier than podcasting. So I'm not going to let, when I only get to do this once or twice a week, I'm not going to let this headache or whatever. And I just openly talk about it on the podcast generally. I'll be like, yeah, I got an awful head, sinuses, whatever. I've done it on this one too. It's just, and I've been fighting that today. I've been fighting allergies and stuff because there was a lot of rain that swept through here today. And, so it's been an awful kind of sinus and allergy kind of day. But it's the same thing. The whole day I was like, I was like, I get to podcast tonight, with Henno, and I'm kind of excited about tomorrow because I'll do the other one, and so yeah, I get you on that.
Well, and you've shared this a lot about how of all the things that you may back out on or whatever it is, this is the one thing you don't want to miss.
Yeah, absolutely.
If at all possible.
Yeah, I've only missed of the podcasts I've done, I've only missed a couple, and those were because I was it was right when I found out I had gout, actually, and I was having a horrible gout flare-up to where I couldn't get out of bed. So, and, I didn't really want to podcast from bed. That's just, I could have, because, I've got, you can't really see it. I got the, stage mic arm type microphones. So, I could have put the mic next to the bed and, but I was too far, out of it as far as, plus I was on some painkillers, which may have made for better podcasting.
I'm telling you, just lying in bed.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude, I had so many people say that to me because, and I was
hate
like,
that song.
It made me laugh so much though, because it really was like
it
between
really was. Yeah.
between that and a knee injury I had, I was laid up for the better part of 2 months. Yeah. And I mean, all I could do was lay in bed and watch Netflix pretty much. That's all I could do, which I had some people, oh, that sounds great. And I'm like, I'll trade you. Because, with gout flare-ups, like, man, you barely touch that, and I'm coming off the bed. I'm like, and like, I will gladly go to work for you if you lay in bed and take that for me. So, yeah. But, you're right. We've really taken pride in that, especially over on Salty Language, and that's why with Jen this week, she was like, well, do we skip a week? Or I'm like, let me see if Henno wants to do a show, because then we're still putting a show up, Like, I know, like, with Angela's Awesome, unfortunately Angela and her husband had to say goodbye to a four-legged friend of theirs a couple weeks ago, and you still went ahead and put together a show because, and this is something, I don't know if you guys, because I haven't listened to all your episodes, I don't know if you've approached this or not. You know how you talk about how podcasting is kind of your therapy a little bit, some of your self-care? On top of that, it's like there's a group of people that it may be their self-care as well. Yes. And in my head, I'm like, I can't let them down. Like, I cannot, because I know there's certain podcasts, they pop up and you're like, sweet, I can't wait to listen to this or whatever. And I think I kind of run into that to where I'm like, when I see a show skip a week sometimes, I'm like, oh, man, like you're kind of down about it.
And you just nailed something that got me through today was I got a text message from a friend of mine who has been doing she trains people that work at call centers.
Okay.
And sometimes she then has to also manage the call centers, and it could be a night shift. So she's been on night shifts now for months, and it's just grueling hours and then regular life and everything. And she really likes the Angela's Awesome podcast, and she listened. She caught up on a few episodes today, and she sends me this text message that was all about, about that, how she's just been in a dark place, not happy with these hours, and that she listened today and it lifted her up.
Yep.
That she just needed to hear some positive. And she's like, I'm feeling awesome again, and thank you for reminding me that I am awesome.
Right.
And she's someone that she suffers from mental health issues, and so I know, that this is the other thing that happened this week. I'd like to touch on too, but that got me through the day. That positive feedback,
right? Yeah.
And then I called my mom on the way home tonight, and because she was over at my house this last weekend, she came to visit. And we sat at breakfast and talked a little bit about some things that are going on with the family, with my dad. And she called me and she said, by the way, I just want to let you know how much you helped me this week and how it, and I'm just like, wow, when did this happen to me that I help other people?
It's funny. Jen touched on that a little bit toward the end of our show last week about how even if you don't feel you're worth anything, other people seek you out.
Yep.
And I know it's funny because I don't know for sure if she was aiming that at me. She said that to me for years now because of, again, with depression, I've always had this kind of feeling of worthlessness. And she's always like, when you go to things, people gravitate to you. She's like, they look for you. They're disappointed when you're not there. She's like, I'm not telling you that to put pressure on you. I'm telling you that because you're in the forest. You can't see out of it. And this is so important to know that even though you may feel worthless, nobody sees you that way. Like, everyone feels you have some worth, and so I get you a little bit on that,
And that's where it comes back to that, we talk about all the time of being service to others, and it's like, okay, this is my opportunity to be of service to myself. But, it really does work that way. At least it has for me.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that happened this week is it's like, at a meeting, I heard a bunch of people talking about how they're depressed, and it was killing me.
Yeah,
it was killing me. I'm like, you got up this morning, you went to work, you got done with work, you went home, you cooked yourself some dinner, and then you left the house again to come hang out with a bunch of people at a meeting and talk about it. I'm just like, that's not. I was like, man, I don't want to be all judgy, but it's like, you're not depressed, man.
See, I've talked about this
down.
Too. Yeah. And listen,
but I'm like,
there's different levels, and I understand that, but it's like, now let me recap my day for you.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I know I'm not as bad as some people have it. I woke up, after not being able to sleep, I finally fell asleep today around noon. And I know a lot of people, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, keep in mind, I haven't slept. I'm sitting there with the anxiety of not being able to sleep. And blah. This isn't just normal not be, I went to bed took a nap at noon. But after that, when I got up, I one of my medicines is out. I just need to go get it refilled. No big deal. Yeah, I didn't do it. Yeah. I contemplated not taking a shower today. You see what I mean? It's like these are how days for a depressed person work. You struggle with every little decision generally once you're... And again, I'm way into it in a lot of ways. In other ways, I kind of force myself to keep trying to see the perspective and fight through, And again, I know there's people way worse than me. I'm just using that to juxtapose what you were talking about. They went out of their house twice today. I opened the door to see if I got a package in the mail and was like, ugh.
What, you're talking about routine things, like sitting there going, I don't even know if I can do this.
Yes.
Something that's a normal routine for everybody.
And I've talked on this show countless times about how sometimes your to-do list for the day needs to be get up, or get out of bed, take a shower, fix yourself something to eat. Even if that's all you do for the day, put on clean clothes probably. If that's all you do for the day, sometimes that's, as we've talked on this show, that's your win. You completed that list, even though most people are like, what? Because they do it without thinking. It's an effort for me at times. That stinks. I mean, it really does,
And it's important to talk about that for somebody that's listening that really isn't sure whether they're, do I need to go to that next level and seek some help?
That's a good point. That's a great point, actually.
It's not about saying I'm more depressed than you.
Exactly.
Oh, check out how depressed I am.
Yes.
It's not that. It's kind of having a barometer of like, okay, you're sitting here sharing, okay, this is what my life is like. I needed help.
Yes. Well, actually, and this is a great point, on Salty Language, me and my co-host Tony, we've been friends almost 30 years. We did an episode, it's episode 47 of the show, and there's a point where I talk about the whole, how I could just lay in bed and not care. I'm like, there's just some days I wake up and I just lay in bed and I just turn over, and Tony's basically like, oh yeah, I get you. But I'm like, no. I'm like, let me explain. I'm like, I don't mean I'm in bed, it's comfortable, I just don't want to get up and go to work. I'm like, I'm talking like, I don't care if the world is exploding around me. I'm just going to lay here. Like, the house could be on fire, and I feel like I still would want to just lay there. Like, that kind of a concept. And I'm like, that's your difference between just having a day where you want... I mean, who doesn't wake up and want to lay in bed, longer? Yeah, everybody wants to hit the snooze button, or I don't feel like going to work today. We all get it. That's fine. And again, like you said, it's not about, I'm worse than you. It's not anything like that. There's no judgment. It's just like explaining the difference. Like what Tony deals with probably doesn't need to go see anybody for counseling or medicine or anything like that. I do, because if I don't, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse to where eventually all I'm going to do is lay in bed. I'm just not going to do anything else.
And what kind of, when you get this advice, like, we'll make a gratitude list. Well, all right, so the person that actually went to work, did a day's worth of work, interacted with other human beings, all that kind of stuff, probably took a shower. There's a lot of a gratitude list to make.
Yeah.
But if you just didn't even care what day it was, where you are, that's like, there's not a whole lot in there to work off of to begin with.
Right. And again, how serviceable am I to others with the day I had? I mean, aside from maybe this podcast, and I'm not trying in any way. I joke all the time on Salty Language about how I'm narcissistic, and we took a narcissist test, and I scored off the chart, or pretty high, which blows my mind because the self-hatred I have is so ridiculous. I don't know how I could be a narcissist. But anyway,
that's funny.
I know. Actually, I do. We actually kind of fleshed it out a little bit, but it comes more to my selfishness as far as, I talked when you were on with us before about being selfish. And you guys did it much better over on Angela's Awesome podcast. Actually, almost the same week, I believe. I didn't even realize. I hadn't
Actually,
listened.
you're right. We did.
Yeah, I hadn't listened to your episode. I listened to it that night, and I was like, "Oh my god, we almost did you could almost piggyback those shows, and they fit."
You actually could.
Yeah, which is great. I'm totally fine with that.
Wild.
If you want to listen to them and then us, or vice versa, go for it. That's a great way to get going here. But yeah, that selfish level of stuff. But anyway, I can't be serviceable to others if I haven't taken care of myself. But I'm in that transition phase to where, in a lot of ways, you kind of have to shut down. You kind of have to go into the cocoon almost to reemerge later. And that's, unfortunately, that phase for me has been a long one because seeking help is not easy. But as we've said countless times on this show, if you need help, if you identify with what I'm saying regularly, you probably should at least go have a conversation with a doctor. Don't let them stick you on a medicine right away. But like mine made me come back like a couple visits before she stuck me on something. So
and it's that exchanging what your day is like and what you go through. It's something that it really isn't human nature. We all want to fix things ourselves. Yeah. We don't want to open up. We bottle this stuff in. I mean, think about being in high school and the stuff that used to go through my head all the time and feelings of doubt and insecurity. I never shared that with anybody.
Dude, all I did was listen to depressing music, write depressing poetry, and draw dark stuff. That's what I did.
Dive deeper.
Yep.
Yeah, and so, the one thing I did appreciate about these people bringing up that they feel depressed is that at least they were discussing it, and then you could get some counters like oh, well, actually, I'm really grateful for this and this today, and maybe get some perspective, because that, I can relate to, I've had periods of my life where I do crash and burn.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm down for a week.
Oh, sure.
And I can completely relate to that idea of, I have no physical symptoms at all. You would think I had the flu. You would think I had whatever it was.
Yeah.
I literally cannot get out of bed.
Yeah.
But there's nothing physically wrong with me. I feel a tiredness that is so all-encompassing, it will not go away, and I literally sleep for 4 days straight.
Yeah, exactly. I've found over the last few years that I've actually fallen into those kind of things more and more. It used to be like a day or two. I'd just be like, man, it's just a bad day. And and a lot of times I would just give into it and just be like, I'm just going to sleep it off, basically. I'm just going to, it's like you wake up and it's like, this just isn't my day. I'm going back to bed and resetting tomorrow. Yeah. And sometimes that's what you have to do. Now, granted, it used to be I would do that, I'd work Monday through Wednesday. I'd have Thursday off and be like, I'm just not feeling it today. And just boom, just stay in bed all day Thursday, no harm, no foul, But over time, it's gotten to be 2 days, 3 days, a week one time, to where all I did was I'd get up, use the bathroom, make the minimal to eat. I'd make a protein shake or something rather than make a meal because I could just throw some stuff together and put it in a blender, kind of a thing. Something really minimal to sustain me and then back to bed. And not even just laying in bed, but sleeping. Trying to go to sleep. Because the sooner I go to sleep, the sooner, I'm going to air quote, the sooner it'll be over. Yeah. And even the idea of movies or a video game. No, I don't, literally head on pillow. Yeah. I'm just, and for me, I don't know. The interesting thing for me was once I got sober, I haven't actually had that. Yeah. Not like that. I've had some days. It's more like what you're talking about, where it's like, it's like I need a day off, kind of a deal, right? And
but
those days are
like
fine. Everybody needs a recharge day, You're like, exactly. Listen, all I'm doing today is I'm gonna order a pizza. I'm gonna sit on the couch or in bed. I'm just gonna watch some Netflix, and I'm to heck with. I'm not gonna clean the house. I'm not doing anything. Everybody needs those days, and those days are the days that really in life you probably should really treasure. Because if you absolutely can just once in a while, just basically just shuck everything off of you and just enjoy yourself, those are huge win days for a lot of people. And I get it. I totally get it, from where I used to work 50, 60 hours a week. And man, when I my friends would pick me up. I'd go over to their house, and I'd get there, and I'd just pretty much hit the floor and be out. Like, and I'd be like, you should have just taken me home because I'm so exhausted. I can't be of service. I can't be part of the group. I can't do anything but just, pass out almost.
But there's that difference, like you just nailed it, where when I do have those days, I maximize it. I go, and we all love to call those the mental health days.
Yeah,
exactly. Where we get out of ourselves.
Yep.
And so then be in the moment. Be part of it.
Yeah.
Don't because what we want to do is we feel guilty.
Yeah.
Oh, I should be doing something else.
Nope. Enjoy that pizza. Love that movie. I don't care if it's the worst movie you've ever watched. If you're sitting there binge watching Lifetime all day, fine. Who cares? No judgment days basically is what those should be.
That's even a better way.
You know? Yeah.
A no judgment day. Yeah. But that is very different than the I cannot get up out of bed days.
Yes.
And I don't know if it was. I don't know what it is. If it was I don't know if it had to do with, drinking, if it had to do with me having a quote unquote soul sickness, where it was that I don't know who I am, because that was the one thing I got for me, recovery had a lot to do with finding purpose in life.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I used to not feel like I had a purpose.
Totally understand that. Yeah.
And that can mess with you, and you go and you go and you go and you go. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I would be down. So, I'm happy I no longer have that.
Yeah,
it's,
sure.
I can't explain it.
Right.
Other than just to say that, hey, I had a transformation in my life and now things are better. And then to look at it and go, okay, let's see. I stopped doing this. I get this. All right, let's keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
sure.
just keeps,
it's, it's kind of like somebody who's losing weight, kind of a thing. Like they go, well, I'm working hard in the gym. I'm breaking my neck in the gym. I'm eating this way. I'm not eating all this other stuff or whatever. And you're like, I'm making all these choices to have that healthy lifestyle. And I'm noticing, like, whether it's and again, I know you guys and I don't either advocate, like, using a scale as a reward system in any way. But it's like, but if that's what you do and you're like, wow, I've lost this, and you get that good feeling, it's like that encourages you to go to the next step. Don't get me wrong, that's also where it can be a problem, I understand, because plateaus happen, and that's a whole other scenario. I'm just using it as a generalization of, sometimes that's just what you need, is you see the benefits of it. Or, a lot of diets have the cheat day.
Yeah.
And the last time I was on a legit diet, I was on it for... I had been on it for about 2 weeks. Like, the first week, I didn't do the cheat day, because I'm like, I feel like I feel like I'd be too weak that first week. Like that if a cheat day might turn into something worse. So I'm like, I'm gonna push through that and just be good. Maybe I'll instead of having turkey bacon, I'll have bacon, and that'll be my cheat or something. So where I'm still kind of in the same whatever. And then the second week, I'm like, I am a guy who could eat pizza every day, and I'm not exaggerating. I really could. And I know I shouldn't, but I love pizza, right? So I openly admit it. I know my weakness. So I'm like, I'm getting a pizza. I'm going to get, like, all the things I like. And I actually like a lot of vegetables on pizza and stuff, so there's that element. But it's like I'm getting just a greasy whatever pizza, and, that's the part of the cheat day. And I eat this, and I'm like, I feel horrible after doing this. Why am I doing this to myself? And I'm sitting there going... It's the same thing. And Tony's talked about this over on Salty Language. As he lost weight and they changed their whole style of eating, getting away from sugars and various other stuff, that now if you see him sit down and eat a pizza, because he likes a pizza occasionally, but if he sits down and eats one, and then I talk to him the next day, he sounds like he's hung over.
Interesting.
And so I kind of think that's what happens is all these kind of things, and you end up being hung over from, whatever. But when you see those benefits, then he goes back and goes, I feel like garbage. When I'm doing this, I feel fantastic. I'm going to keep doing this because this is a much better. And I think alcohol, it's the same thing. You drink and you feel horrible. You make bad decisions, whatever. But like now, you're sober and you're seeing how you're not making those bad decisions now. You're doing other positive things in your life. You're feeling better. You're enjoying life more or whatever. And it's like, why would I go back to that?
Yeah. I have a question for you about, you said the word plateaus, and I want to tie this over to medications. when somebody is going on medications and you're seeing improvements occurring, are there plateaus?
It's funny, and actually this was going to be our topic for today, was actually medicine and withdrawal. Not just medicine, but just withdrawal was the overall topic. But it was funny because, like for antidepressants, you have to start at a low dose and you work up. Because I guess, I don't know exactly why, but I'm assuming it's because otherwise it's too much for your brain. Because you're altering your brain with those medicines. And I'm not being some anti-drug person here. It's the truth. You're altering.
It's the truth, yeah.
I mean, more and more is coming out about them, about how much they alter your brain. And you can do that research yourself and make your own decisions on that with your doctors and stuff. I'm not going to advocate one way or the other, really. But I'll just tell you, as anything with this show, not a doctor, not a therapist, not trained anything, I'm just explaining my journey. I didn't really notice anything for a while. And then Jen actually noticed, and she was like, you don't seem to have like the low points. She's like, I'm noticing you're not as irritable. You don't have those low points. And then after a little while, it was like, okay, and then I kind of felt a little different. Like I kind of noticed that I started noticing I wasn't hitting those lows. And obviously you're not going to hit the highs because, the medication keeps you in that gray area. So, but after a while, I hit a plateau with that to where I was like, I don't feel like I'm feeling any better.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that's kind of where, when I talked to my doctor about it, because I was like, is this normal? She's like, yeah, she's like, basically what happens is getting on that medicine and stuff, you've shifted yourself. Now you have to get used to this you, whereas before you were that, depressed, cranky, whatever, and she's like, now if you're less of that, you have to this is the new you. You have to get used to that and accept what basically the boundaries of this you are.
Okay.
And I'm sure you went through something pretty similar, I would assume.
Well, yeah, eliminating certain habits of mine, and just that
right.
It's like it's like, okay, we just put a new set of tires on. Now you need to go out and actually ride it for a little while,
right.
And you're sitting there going, well, wait a minute, it felt so good just to get the new tires on.
Yeah,
it's like, well, now you actually have to go out and use them a little bit,
right? And I think what happened was originally, since it eliminated those lows, I'm trying to think how to word this right. It seems like you're in a better mood because you're eliminating the extremes. It's kind of like you're a C student, but then they go, okay, we're going to eliminate the lowest grades. All of a sudden, you're a B- student, kind of a thing, and you're like, hey, I'm a better student. Well, you're not. Yeah. You just, they change the math a little bit,
Yeah.
So
it's like I instantly go to a music analogy, which is like by cutting the muddy lows.
Yeah.
It enhances the brightness a little bit, but nobody actually turned up the brightness.
Right.
We just cleared up some of the mud.
It's so funny because we can keep making all the analogies, but going through school for graphic design, in Photoshop, a lot of times you'll bring up levels, and what levels show you is the brightest brights and the darkest darks, and then obviously the middle ground, and you generally, in images, will eliminate the brightest brights and the darkest darks so that you get a more realistic looking picture, because otherwise you're going to have, those whites are going to be like intense and the blacks will be too far to where they're not, like I said, they're not realistic. Because, when you look at most things a shadow has got, you can still see some light in most of them, So, it's the same idea. You eliminate the muddiness of the picture and all of a sudden, it looks better overall because you've taken away those extremes.
Yeah, and some of the noise, so to speak.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So actually, this is a great segue then. So, all right. So you're on medications, and so these types of medications can alter your serotonin levels. It's a physical change occurring.
Yeah.
Those serotonin levels can change how other whatever you want to call it, body mechanics occur.
Yeah.
How other chemicals are released in our bodies, our hormones, all that stuff. They all play in together.
Yeah.
So you've cleared out some of the noise. You're starting to see things from like you're saying, it's more natural, it's more real.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you suddenly stop
Yeah. Now, I'm going to preface, before I go into that part of it, for the withdrawal part, in that you should never, ever, ever, if you can help it, go cold turkey on a mind-altering... A lot of medications, there's statins and stuff that all tell you don't just stop. But on the antidepressants and stuff, you should not stop. You should climb down from them. Much like you climbed up to them, you should climb back down. Especially if you're on a higher level. Like if you're on a real low dose, you probably can get away with it easier because, less effect. But I don't know what the level was of mine because I don't know the exact dosage I was on. I don't know where it ranks in it or anything. But I had some insurance snafus and whatnot that caused me to lose my insurance. And this medicine that I was on was a new one. There's no generic for it, so it's very expensive. And I couldn't afford it. And when I went, so I was like, well, we'll see. I'll file the paperwork. We'll see what happens. And, it became a couple days. And then they're like, well, it's going to take a week. It's going to this. Next thing you know, and I'm going to kind of go forward and then I'll come back. What happened with that is essentially it forced me off the medicine for a good month and a half. And I, at that point, was like, I don't feel that different than when I was on the medicine. I don't think I'm going back on the medicine. Because if I feel the same and I'm not on it, why put myself through, why change my brain? Why have the side effects of the medicine? Why not just eliminate this? And maybe it's time to look into something else, kind of a thing, And so now I'll go back. The withdrawal part of it, and I actually wrote a blog about it a while ago. I'm going to kind of pull from that real quick here. It says, first off, I know that doctors do not recommend going cold turkey on any antidepressant. I found a website that actually talked about the withdrawal symptoms from, and the one I was on was Effexor, or venlafaxine, which, like I said, at the time when I went on it was brand new, and it was, it's a very strong and different antidepressant. Now, my doctor picked it for certain other reasons, too, because some of the side effects that it had actually could work in my benefit. So and it also is the one at the time that led to weight gain the least. And she, I'm a big guy. She didn't want to put more weight on me like a lot of them are. The withdrawal symptoms for this medicine can include sweating, chills, lethargy, nausea or vomiting, insomnia, anxiety, vertigo, numbness, and intense dreams. And I felt more lethargic right away. Like, I just felt exhausted, almost. Like, just no energy to do anything, whatever. My anxiety was at a higher level, which, that makes sense, because that medicine helps with that. The numbness kind of a thing, just nothing. I just didn't, nothing fazed me. And I felt it was dialed up from where it normally was. And even like now looking back, that period, it was dialed way up. Yeah. And I also felt more irritable. And one thing I noticed big time, the one that I felt the most was the intense dreams. And I talked about this over on Salty Language, but I was having dreams so real that it was like, I had a dream, and this is just a real common type of dream, but it's like I had a dream that I texted Tony about something, and that he didn't respond to me. I woke up and grabbed my phone and started like typing like, why the hell haven't you responded? Type of a thing. And then I was like, did I? And then I'm looking, I'm like, I didn't text him. Like, I didn't do that. And that was one that's more common. I had some of the weirdest dreams of my life that, looking back now, I kind of wish I would have chronicled them, because I think they would have made for some great conversations or blogs or whatever. But they were just so vivid, though, like so real, that like I'd wake up at times and I mean it would take me. It was, some people, they have that what is that? I can't think what it is, but they'll talk about how one of the parts of your therapy essentially is putting your foot on the ground to feel grounded, so that you're in reality, like dissociation. I had to do that at times to basically like look around, get up, walk around the house to reorient myself with actual life. That's how messed up everything felt, So that's I'm trying to make this sound as extreme as I can, because this isn't like you just wake up from a bad dream. This is like almost like waking up from reality.
Yeah.
You know? But there were also things that are called, and I talked about them a little bit a few weeks ago, called like brain zaps, or I forgot the actual term. And those were the worst part of the withdrawal. Is you just, and I've talked about it on here actually, was, you know, you just feel like these overwhelming like electricity in your body almost. Like somebody just turned a circuit breaker on and off, and you just jump, and you're like, and it just happens randomly. Like, and it would happen for like weeks. And so anyway, going through all of that is why they don't recommend that you just cold turkey these medicines. Yeah. When you step down off of them, you can still have some of this stuff, but it generally isn't as bad. Yeah. So yeah, that I just did a little research today myself, and because there's certain terminologies, like the term withdrawal, you know, that has to do with addictive, substances. Yeah. Just like detox. Yep. Detox is originally associated with alcohol. Anyone that starts talking about, I'm detoxing my body from, environment. No, that's not. No, that's not a detox. It's generally, like you said, from an addictive substance of some sort. Yep.
Yeah, a detox and withdrawal have always been. Now they've been kind of co-opted. Yeah. To and because it makes sense, you say, okay, I am withdrawing from this. So I'm just looking this up, and I found this, and it's kind of euphemistic, but it was called discontinuation symptoms.
Okay.
That's the term that they use for coming off a non-addictive substance that can have negative side effects. These are discontinuation symptoms. Like, to me, though, it sounds like I'm being politically correct.
It does, it's just
a bigger word to say withdrawals.
Right. Like, detox sounds kind of negative. Let's brighten it up a little bit here. Yeah, I get you. It does feel very PC.
It does. It just sounds like it's a PC term, but it really makes sense because So I just can't imagine, like, going back to that idea of noise. So, like, let's say you all of a sudden the noise comes back full fledged. How do you even know? Like, how can you even have an analysis of, is this different on this and off this, when you've just completely taken your brain and gone, you know?
Yeah.
Like, can you actually have any sort of can you discern the true from the false, I guess, is the question.
I totally get you. I honestly think the only reason that I did, to some extent, and there's some extent, no. Much like when I went on it, I didn't realize the effects it was having on me, but people around me all did.
Other people saw you,
I think coming off of it was similar in that I knew a few of the side effects ahead of time, the irritability and different stuff. What I didn't know was like those brain zaps and stuff like that. Yeah. And I've from various reading, I found that those brain zaps are really common in this medicine especially. Like, if you type in like brain zaps, I can't remember what it is. I typed in some other word in Google, not the name of the medicine, just brain zaps, whatever. This medicine comes up more than any other medicine for it. It is notorious for that, the dreaming. There's a lot of stuff, like I said, I kind of, again, not a doctor, blah, 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 but this antidepressant really kind of frightens me because I've read about people who've been on it for like 15 years and then come off of it. So, because their doctor's like, let's take you off of it and let's see how you are now. Because, again, these medicines actually alter your brain over time to where you actually might not need, and I'm very carefully saying this, but you might not need the medicine anymore 15 years down the road. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying they cure you. They alter you, but the doctor sometimes will take people off to see kind of where or people will want to come off and say, let me see where I'm at, And the side effects from coming off of this, some people deal with some of these things, even coming off of them correctly, still deal with the brain zaps and stuff for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, that is,
Because they found this out. They found that this is also part of barbiturates do the same thing. Yep. And that it's actually, they found that it alters the body.
Yes, exactly.
And it's not just the brain, but physically the body.
Yep.
There's a guy.
Go ahead. Sorry.
sorry. There's a guy. He was a climber, a rock climber, that got hooked on barbiturates because of just pain meds and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And he eventually, he became an addict, mm-hmm. and eventually, went into recovery over it. But it was years later, years where he still had the effects. So this idea that these type of primarily brain medicines can do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's substantiated completely.
Yes. I actually was reading a day or two ago, and I think it was about antidepressants and stuff, that they actually are saying that they think that they actually can change your moral compass as well over time. Like that they affect you to that level. And I'm like, it makes sense. You're on these medicines, they do change you. Because I've seen enough people now, before and after them, or during and after, or however you want to put that you can see differences in people. Like there's something about it. And it's funny because my initial worry about going on these medicines was that it would change me in a different way. I thought I would lose creativity. I would lose this.
Yeah.
But I was right. It was just I had the dial set just a little off. They change you, but not in the way that they don't make you less creative. But they can change you and whatever. Going back to what you asked about how excuse me, I think the only reason that I knew was I am a person who researches everything.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't mean like obsessively, but I mean, before I went to the doctor and talked to her about depression and stuff, I went through depression lists and was like, okay, I have this, definitely have this. And I did that so I could talk to her and use terms she was looking for so that she knew that I wasn't just, I'm depressed, whatever, I was like, I want to make sure she understands the level that this is affecting my life. And
so you had like a hyper awareness of your symptoms in a way.
And I think that's kind of what I do on this show a little bit, is that I'm constantly like, I catch myself a lot. I'm a person who really studies behaviors in other people. Like when somebody acts a certain way sometimes around me, it eats at me until I can find out why. Like, I need to know why they tick that way. It reminds like I'm Siler from Heroes or something. Yeah. Like, what makes you tick? With less killing. Oh, spoilers. Show's only been off for like 8 years, but I think I do the same thing with myself. Like, I even look for weird behaviors in me, and especially with medicines like this where I know it's going to change, how I behave. I'm looking for that stuff. So I think that's how I was able to,
discern that.
Yeah, just staying knowledgeable on what to look for, but being careful to not be one of those people that reads a list of side effects and always has all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I wasn't one of those. It was, or it goes to WebMD and you're like, oh, it's cancer.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. Yeah. Well, it's also this, and this, but hey,
Yeah.
It could be chlamydia, but hey, who's counting?
Like, oh, it's herpes. Like, no, it's acne. Here, use it.
Here, have some salve.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I read about was the idea of, some people will be removed off of a medicine to see if it has made some changes.
Yeah.
And by slowly, under a doctor's care, slowly weaning yourself and removing yourself, you don't affect the recovery that you've had.
Yeah.
That you may not even know you've had recovery just because, life has gotten good and everything like that. And here you have all this, good stuff happening. Okay, we're going to pull you off so we don't affect any of that recovery. If you cold turkey it, you may set yourself back on recovery you had that you didn't even know you had it.
Right, because you can actually slingshot yourself by cold turkeying. Yeah. And exactly. You're totally right. And that's why, I just didn't have a choice at the time because antidepressants they're a controlled substance, but they're not. You know what I mean? They're not like painkillers, but they're still to some extent a controlled substance. So, a lot of times a pharmacy will kind of help you out if you run out of a medicine. They'll give you loaner pills till you can get a new prescription or whatever. They are not allowed to do that with these medicines.
Oh yeah, you're
you know, because they're committing a felony doing such things.
Yeah.
So, because I talked to a pharmacist and was like, is there any way you can, like, give me a week or something like that just so I can, and he's like, I would if I could. He's like, I know, he's like, you know, we filled this enough. We know you. We know whatever. You're not coming in here weird times. You know, you pick up your medicines when they're ready, not like a week before, 2 weeks. You know, there's nothing that says he's abusing, basically. But he's like, I can't. He's like, I absolutely can't do it. He's like, I risk my job. I'm like, say no more. I never, like, you're risking, I wouldn't ask a person to risk their livelihood for, I'll deal, you know. I dealt before I was on him. I was just, and he's like, are you going through, what did you call those? I forgot. The discontinuation symptoms. There you go. Get that's what we'll call the episode instead, right? I shouldn't make light of that, but anyway.
Well, it's a hard word.
It is. Withdrawal is just easier.
Discontinue. I mean, that's a lot of syllables. That goes above my quota at this hour.
Right? But he asked me if I was going through, you know, those, and I was like, yeah. And I told him some of the stuff, and he's like, very common. He's like, very, very common. And he's like, just be careful. He's like, if you feel, he basically gave me the anti-suicide talk, actually. He's like, he's like, if you feel yourself getting dark, if you start having these thoughts, if you this, and this, you know, he's like, get people around you. Just, you know, he's like, the best thing you can do right now while you're going through these for a couple weeks, he's like, probably try not to be alone. He's like, just in case. And I was like, that bad? And he was like, it can be pretty bad. I was like, okay. You know, luckily I live with someone, so it wasn't a problem.
Yeah, and that's where it does actually become like an addictive drug.
Yep.
It becomes very comparable because people in the initial period of time, I mean, that's why, you know, the one thing that's as far as alcohol and other types of drugs like cocaine and heroin and things like that, the one difference with alcohol is it actually becomes part of our bodies. Our bodies replace water with alcohol. Right. And so your liver is now saying, well, I don't need water. I got this stuff.
Right.
Now, when you remove alcohol, your liver says, well, screw you. I'm out of here. And you could actually die from this.
Yes.
Now, a heroin addict is going to get very ill.
Yes.
But there's no risk of them dying from this. And that's why it is actually hospitalization is recommended for coming off of alcohol in some cases. Yeah. But the bottom line is
because they can monitor you and everything. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But with any type of drug, any sort of, what is it, psycho, blah, blah, blah. I'm forgetting the word now. But any mind-altering drug.
Psychotropic? Is that the word?
Psychotropic, yeah, that's it.
I don't know if it is. I'm just throwing a word out there.
You rocked it.
Yes.
Yes. Winner.
Go spelling bee vocabulary.
That idea of you have been artificially giving yourself endorphins, all the things that make us feel good.
Yeah.
Rehab is there, is there to be a safety net,
right?
That you're not going to go kill yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's where these two things become very similar. It seems to me.
Yeah, and that's why and again, the reason as coming off of it, because my insurance lapsed, I couldn't afford to go to the doctor either. So I was in I couldn't even go to the doctor to get, okay, well, this is going to happen. You can't go get that reinsurance. Luckily, talking with that pharmacist, they know enough about the medicine, what it does, and that's what they go to school for as well. They should know the ins and outs of this. You should be able to ask your pharmacist anything about a drug, and they should be able to answer you pretty much. I mean, unless you come at them with something really weird or something, let me get back to you. But the one that I talked to is very knowledgeable. He's a super nice guy, and it's why, at one point I knew another place around had the same medicine a little cheaper, and I was like, I'm not going to switch because I really like this guy. He's a really good pharmacist. I want to stay with him. If he leaves, then maybe, but until then, it's kind of like having a good doctor. It's like you want to stay with that doctor, even if
it costs you a little more.
Yeah, there might be a better doctor out there, but you're like, listen, I kind of found this one.
You have a relationship.
Yeah.
So, all right, so how long were you on that particular medicine?
I want to say it was about 2.5 years.
Okay, so a good period of time.
Good clip, yeah. And
so now, when you came off, did you with having to literally, it's like somebody slammed on the brakes.
Yeah.
Did you have a loss of recovery as a result?
I probably did, because excuse me, some of the side effects, the anxiety, the lethargy, stuff like that. I've already, like, think about the earlier conversations we had tonight, like, and I mean on the podcast, about just laying there and stuff. That has gotten worse, and I think I probably kind of slingshotted myself toward that a little more than I might not have. Now, I could have ended up there anyway, but I kind of feel like I accelerated the trip a little bit. And that's what I mean when I say slingshot. That's what I'm referring to, is that instead of maybe you'd get there eventually, you just pretty much just throw it into hyperdrive and, go right at it. So, but it's weird because, on top of that, what I found was, like, Tony and I went to a concert. It's been a few months ago now, but at that concert, I felt a high that I hadn't felt in years. Like, wow. And I will say this. I've said on this show and on Salty Language and stuff, I'm a person who's always connected to music. Like, music is always, and I know most people do, it's a very emotional tool. And music has always been there. I can pinpoint things in my life, put songs with them. This is why I listen to this. And even now I'll do it. Certain songs give me certain moods. When I would draw, it was the same way. If I'm drawing certain things, I want certain kinds of music because they kind of put me in that mindset, And we're at a concert, and it was, mostly punk bands, and it was, loud, it was aggressive, the crowd was great, and giving it all back to because it was the Swellers' last show in Detroit. They're from Flint, Michigan, so it's almost like their last hometown show, basically, and the crowd was giving as well as the band was. It was like, it's exactly what you want from a concert, because there's nothing worse than going to a concert and the crowd's dead. The crowd is giving nothing to the band. And they weren't, man. The crowd's all screaming the songs back at them, and, and you could tell the band was feeling it. Everything was going good. Tony and I had beers. I'm there with my best friend. Everything was perfect, basically. It was like that perfect storm of happiness. And I looked at Tony at one point, and I was like, this may be the best night I've had in years. And, of course, then we, clinked beers and, went back to, we were done with all that lovey stuff. And but,
you did a cup check and back to the concert.
Pretty much, yeah. Oh, jeez. Yeah. But it really was. And even looking back now, I'm like, man, I got to get to more shows because but the problem is at the age I'm getting to, I'm going to become that old guy at the club if I'm not careful. So I got to watch out for that. I got to watch what level of bands I'm going to see. But it was weird because the whole time I was on the medicine, I can't think of a point where I was at that level of a high. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand because, again, it's like generally you're conceding those to get rid of those lows, and those lows are horrible. But I was like, there's just something about emotion and living in that emotion, good, bad, and different, that I think in a lot of ways that really is how you're alive.
Yeah.
And it's tough because I don't want to eliminate the highs because I don't get them that much. And when I do, it's like those middle grounds just don't do anything for you. No one's getting a fire in their belly for the middle grounds. No musicians like, I hope I play to 20 people tonight or 50 people. You always dream of the arenas and stuff like that. No artist wants to hang in a coffee shop. You want your stuff in big art shows or a museum, or, you strive for bigger. And essentially in life, it's, going back to that happy-ish show, that's really what on antidepressants, you have to be okay with happy-ish.
Yeah.
And that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. I'm one of them.
And that's where I think that's where that something that Jen talks about is she brings up a lot of the other tools then that you have to use.
Yeah.
And that's for me, at least for my recovery, because that same thing happens with I got to a point where I drank enough that I was altering my brain chemistry.
Yeah.
I'm drinking enough that I'm creating endorphins, so I'm getting high. So I would have experiences that were, way more. It was like a cocaine high. I was on fire.
Yeah.
And now that's gone. I'm not going to ever have that again.
Yeah.
So now how do I get okay with what I do have?
Right.
And that's where you start learning other tools.
Right.
And where you get into these things. I mean, that's where I became, Mr. Positive Affirmation.
Right.
It's not because I hated people like that.
Yeah,
I would be around somebody like that. And I'm just like, I just want to stick a knife in you.
It's funny. Sorry to interrupt you here. In high school, that was Jen. Constantly, you'd see her at 7:30 in the morning because we had to be at school at 7:35 or whatever. You get there 7:15 or whatever. She's hi, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, shut
Seriously, just
up. Yeah, and I was in commercial art, which is basically graphic design. It was a 3-hour block program in high school. And one of the girls in there that was a cheerleader, and I love her. She's such a sweet woman, and I still talk to her off and on now. But she was the same way. Like, hi, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, just leave me alone. And for people who may not totally get this, I basically was and I don't drink coffee, but I was the don't talk to me till I've had my coffee concept. Yeah. I was just like, listen, you see how that says 7:30? Don't talk to me until it says 12. Kind of a guy, then I'm fine. And I'm not even kidding. Most days, if you get me up that early, like if I've been sleeping, had a normal sleep cycle, get up at 7:30 in the morning, which I had to do for a while because I opened at the job I worked at, I'm just useless until 11. I mean, I'm just totally useless. You can put coffee, caffeine. You could probably give me cocaine, and I'm still useless. But you're right. Like, I've always gravitated away from the people who are, like, overly positive because I'm like, stop being fake. Like, no one can possibly be this happy. Like, it's just not... And it reminded me of listening to was it Dap Pod, I think, when they had the Lo-Fi guys on a week or two ago. And was it Tony, I think it was saying almost the exact same thing, and I was like my spirit animal, like nobody can be that happy, So that's why like Tony and I work well together at times because, generally Tony was always the more upbeat one and I'm generally the Debbie Downer, so we balance. And same with Jen, she's still an optimistic. She'd rather sit in the naive than wallow in the dark. And I'm the opposite, so. And that's how I used to look at it. That was my type of judgmentalism is like, how unintelligent and stupid are you? Right.
Like, come on. I've got a brain here. I'm seeing things for how they are.
Yeah. How can you look at the world and smile? Look at all this evil and bad things. Yeah. How can you still smile,
Like, I used to actually think I wish I could be more simple because then life would be happier. Like, I wish I would just get hit over the head and be dumb. I mean, really, because I thought that's what it was. And it's something that we talk a lot about in recovery is you can't be too stupid for this, but you can be too smart.
Oh, yeah, totally. I get that totally. Yeah. Even same with what I'm dealing with, same idea.
Yeah.
Remember I mentioned I do research. You can go too far with it and then give yourself more than you have or, So, yeah, totally.
Yeah. I had a girlfriend when I was, when I'm between 19 and 21, I remember what it was. That's the point of your life where you really are confused about what you're doing. You have at least for me, I had no idea who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. Yeah. I was in a constant state of funk. And I had a girlfriend that every time she called me on the phone, hi, how are you? And it was like,
even now I'm cringing.
I broke up with her.
Yeah.
Like I every time I'd pick up the phone, I'd be like, oh man, how can somebody be this happy all the time?
Right.
And positive. And looking back on it now, I go, wow, that was an amazing person.
Yeah.
Now I look back because I had to get to the point where, all right, so if my highs aren't as high and my lows aren't as low and I'm running in more of a middle ground, so where do I find the joy?
Yeah.
And that's where I had to learn these tools. And all of a sudden I find myself relating to this the eternal optimist.
Right.
And I find myself not wanting to be cynical all the time and not wanting to be my initial reaction to be sarcasm.
Yeah.
Maybe third,
Yeah, right. Well, it's funny. I'll give you two examples of me. I always told people that my head works like a Rolodex. And for those of you too young to know what a Rolodex is, because your phone has everything.
Kidding.
It was this dial type of thing. You would have important addresses and contacts in, and it would spin, basically. So the concept is that when someone says something, like I go up to someone and they go, hi, the first thought in my head is die. kind of a thing, right? So of course you can't say that, so you have to dial to 2. Well, 2 is still pretty violent, so it's like, well, let's go to 3, and it's like, stop it, It's like, how far do I have to dial this before I have a socially acceptable answer here, basically? And environment changes based on that, because at school it's one thing, but if you were at work, obviously you have to dial it a little further because you don't want to be the negative one, even though that was always my my moniker. Even though, as I've said, and like I said, I wrote a blog about it, and I've talked about how I'm not a negative person. I've always been that. My dad was never, like during my lifetime, when I was a very little kid, my dad worked. He used to do body work on cars. He worked for a dealership when I was a really little kid. They went on strike at one point. He was like, this isn't feeding my family, and that was pretty close to the end of it. He then went out on his own, opened his own place with my brother. They, for years, did that. When that kind of folded, him and my mom started doing car shows, flea markets, stuff like that, and they just sold various stuff over in the whatever. And then, then my dad worked for a guy that was a friend of his for a short time, kind of helped him run a store. But most of the time of my dad being alive, he worked for himself and never chose the easy path. As a person with experience in body work, he could have walked into any dealership and gotten a very good paying job, been part of the union, made plenty of money. He didn't want to do it. He wanted to do it himself, so he chose the hard path. In my life, I started out working for other people, but when I was a little kid, I sold baseball cards and stuff at these flea markets and stuff. So I was already running my own businesses and whatnot, and I was always told, just, you can do whatever you want in life. Just put your head down to put it to the grindstone and do the work. And then, Tony and I had our own shop at one point, and I've sold stuff on eBay and kind of ran that as a business. I've never been one also that looks for the easy path in life. So I've always been that like dream person. Like it's always been like, in my head, I'm always, and I chased that for so long, and whether that's good or bad, who knows? But so I've never really been that defeatist for the longest time. It's just I've kind of gotten to that point a little bit now, and I fight with it all the time. But even starting the podcast, I was never like, oh, no one's going to listen to this. I was never. And you hear Tony and I over on Salty Language all the time, and we're like, we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I don't fully believe that, but it's it's still fun. And it's closer to how I feel, because I feel that we put on something that's fun and people enjoy versus looking at it and going, it's pointless and stupid. Why are we even doing this?
Yeah.
So overall, I really try hard not to have that negativity to me, but I just can't identify with people that are overly positive. I just can't. And it's, like you said, it's the judgment thing based on, in my head, it always was that it almost like you feel the intelligence level. And it's not it at all, because it has nothing to do. I don't feel you're a stupid person at all. And honestly, I'd love to be half as optimistic and positive as of the vibes that you're giving off. I'd love to do that. For me, it's going to be a lot more work, from this point. But you've already put in that work, Yeah,
and that's the thing that it's understandable though to have that when you come face to face with what is a seemingly unmovable object.
Yes.
And that is anxiety, depression. In your case, for me, it was the absolute inability to stop drinking.
Yeah.
I hit something that I could not will it away. I could not hard work it away.
Yeah.
I couldn't fantasize it. There was nothing. This was an unmovable object. Right. So it is natural to dive into everything being negative and to have a negative outlook and to really feel like it's hopeless.
Yeah.
Because you hit this object. And in that case, you have, fortunately, I mean, there is no magic pill that takes away alcoholism.
No.
I had to do work for myself.
Yep.
Now, people with mental health issues can get a bonus from some medicines.
Yeah.
They can get a huge help. But like you said, you got to this point where it's like, okay, well, now I'm in middle ground. You come off of it and you have this experience of like, wow, this high is amazing. Do I want to get back to that?
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, and this is the bad news with recovery from drugs and alcohol, and I think it's the same thing with recovery from mental health. There is a point where, well, you got to do some work.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Eventually we hit the point where, well, if you want things to get better, you actually have to work at it.
Yeah. And much like, alcoholics, drug addicts, anyone who's an addict or any of it, honestly, it's you kind of have to find your rock bottom. And I think with depression and that stuff, you have to do that as well. Like, you have to get to a point that you're like, and this is a great example is this is what I dealt with before I went to the doctor. Was I was always like, I'm smarter than this. I can outthink this. I can stay ahead of this.
Yep.
And for years and years, I fooled myself into thinking I was doing it, not realizing that I was just landsliding right into it, like just full on. I mean, I might as well have just dove in head first because it's like, hey, silly face. The problem with depression is it's your brain attacking yourself. You can't use your brain to, when it's already turned, to use wrestling terminologies, it's already turned heel on you. You can't use it at that point as a tool, basically. Because
you don't know the true from the false.
Exactly. It's already blurred everything for you. You need someone to point out the real from the false. Like to help, whether it's a therapy or a medicine to kind of help you clear the images up, or to cut the muddiness off, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's
it's crazy, and that's what I was reading about. A lot of the discontinuation symptoms is that when you are being given the opportunity, with the help of your physician, to come off these medicines, that doesn't mean your work is over.
Oh, dude, definitely not.
It says your work has actually begun even more so, because you have all these side effects, you have these various things that are going to change. Yeah. So now you really need, and like I already said before, this is what I hear from Jen so much is she's acquired and is sharing some of the tools that can help you.
Yep.
Now do this on your own.
Right.
Or still with the help of a medicine, but maybe one that isn't quite as severe.
Yeah, exactly.
So actually that brings me to a question. So you came off of this one, did you go back on that one, or did you end up going somewhere a new direction? I
actually kind of found myself not going in any direction, and that's kind of where I'm at again. And I've kind of cycled is what's happened. Is I've gotten back to a point to where I found it hard to go find the help because, again, as I've talked before, I'm the type that I want to look into things first and then act. So I've spent too much time, admittedly, looking for what's the best answer. Is it therapy? Is it medicine? Like, the more and more I read about the medicines, I dislike most of the ones that are out there, like the side effects and what happens. But that means, okay, well, if I'm going to refuse a medicine or something, that means I need to accept therapy as an option. Mm. You can't just ignore all of it. You have to at least try. I have to try something here. So that's probably going to be my step, is some form of therapy. And I've talked with different people about what they've gone through and what's worked. But again, I know just because it works for A, B, and C doesn't mean it'll work for me, And, if that doesn't, then maybe I revisit medicine, or maybe I go on a milder version or something to that effect. Just enough to eliminate those lows, and just, again, accept that those high highs are gone. But like you said, then, okay, well, working with a therapist or whatever, like, let's find tools to find happy-ish, Because, again,
I think it's such a great term.
Well, like I said on the show, they talk about how you basically are as happy as you'll ever be in, like, your 20s. And then from there, it's just finding happy-ish. And I was like, if you kind of look at that, it makes a ton of sense. It really does. Because when you're in your 20s, generally, you've got the world by the hind end. You generally don't have much as far as bills and responsibilities. You can just go do whatever you want to do. I had a friend one time called me up. He was 22 and was like, hey, I'm thinking about moving to D.C. for a job. And he's like, but that means I got to this, and this. And I'm like, what's keeping you here? Like, go, man. Go live, go have an adventure, basically. Go live a weird life. And then he moved to New York, and he's been in New York ever since and loving life. And he's like, I'm so glad that I just did it. And I'm like, yeah, it's not often in life you can just drop it's pretty much when you go to college is almost, for most people, the last time in your life you can just throw all caution to the wind and go anywhere you want to go with no repercussion. once you're out of college, you start having debt. You know, but when you decide, hey, I'm going to move, like me, it's like I'm from Ohio. It's like, I'm going to go to California and go to college, you know? Okay.
Yeah.
No one's going to look at you weird. They're going to go, all right, you know?
Yeah.
Now, if I did it, people would be like, you know, like they probably, you know, it'd be a much different look, you know?
Yeah,
like,
it's like a guy from California that suddenly says, I'm going to Idaho.
Yeah. What kind of crazy person does that?
Because that's the ultimate. It's to me, that's what a midlife crisis is for most people.
Yeah.
Is that realization when you go, oh, okay, is this it? How do I make this the best of my life?
Yeah.
And that's because life is not as extreme. So, and that's been for me. I mean, when people ask me, how are you doing today? I say, I've got no complaints.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. That's the truth.
Yeah.
I really don't have anything to complain about.
Right.
My life is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say, I'm freaking awesome. My life is great. Yeah, everything's no, I don't have any complaints right now.
Yeah.
So that's my version of happy-ish.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if that's how I quote, and this is the tool that we talk about, Angela's Awesome Podcasts, if that's the reframing that I have to do to make myself feel good about where I'm at, then that's where I'm at now.
Well, that's like,
I want to make the most of it.
Yeah, like we mentioned earlier, it's like that's you within the boundaries of the new Heno or the Heno you are now. That's finding, and you know, you've got the wheels worn. You're comfortable now. You know, like you've put the work in. Or I don't want to make it sound like you've stopped. You know, because it's always a work in progress.
It's always going to be
like mental health. It's not a fight you ever win. You just stay ahead of it. Basically, that's the best you can do. Is to stay ahead of it, whether it's an inch ahead of it or 10 feet or 20 miles, whatever it is. You just stay ahead of it. It's always there. It's always gonna, might nip at you a little bit occasionally, but you have to find a way to just, sometimes it catches you, but,
Well, we're looking for a sustainable solution is basically the truth of it. And I think, because I'm just realizing now that when I started listening to Salty Language podcast and the first time I heard you, I remember the show that when you went to that show.
Yeah.
I remember the podcast right after that. So it's finally clicking to me like this is all recent history for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
In very recent history.
Yeah, this stuff's all fairly recent. Yeah. Actually, I could tell you when I wrote that blog if you Oh, maybe I can't. I thought it had the date on it. Never mind. Oh, there it is. So December 29th to 24. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Sorry. I scrolled and didn't mean to. November 20th of 2014. Yeah. So it's very recent.
Yeah. So you went 2.5 years on. Did you do the try this medicine, try this one before that one?
No, that was the first one I went. And again, I know a lot of people may be listening and go, "Man, I've been on like 5 or 6 different." I understand that. Mine just comes down to the one I was on seemed to work fine for a while, and like I said, I didn't really notice anything until I was off of it, and then I kind of started to reflect on it, and I was kind of like, I might have just been caught up in the, well, I'm not having the lows, so that's good. And it's like, to some extent that's true, but could it have been better? But like I said, and then now that I've experienced and seen a lot of these side effects from this one, I'm kind of like, about going back on it. But, it's funny, you mentioned on, I think it was the most current Angela's Awesome podcast, you talked about, because you referenced this show and how we do like our challenges for the week and stuff usually. And, it was funny. I've never mentioned on this show. It hit me listening to your show or you guys' show. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Listening to that, it hit me that it was like, each week I'm sitting here and I'm like trying to come up with a challenge, or through the week I try to come up with something, and I'm like, doing this show is my challenge. It is every week. And I don't mean that it's difficult, it's hard as far as like I can't do it, but to come on here and just open myself up, and not to a therapist where it stays there, but I'm opening this up to anyone who wants to download this. And I'm essentially
just take sound bites.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm essentially just standing in like, the city square just talking, and whoever gathers for a crowd gathers. And it's really difficult to do every week because it's putting a lot of myself out there, and I'm always willing to talk about stuff like this, but it's a different level of that. And, it's a totally, like, in Salty Language, we're totally irreverent, and we're just being silly most of the time. And then I get on here, and it's like we're talking really deep stuff at times, sometimes not so much, but you know what I mean? And it's interesting how, like, looking at this show as a challenge, I did the same thing with Salty Language when we started. Because part of the reason I did the show was it was a commitment to, like, first of all, the main reason is I just wanted to hang out with Tony. It gave me an excuse every week. Then I was like, you know what? Also, this gives me a sense of worth. This gives me something to be responsible for, So each
purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this show's doing the same thing, even though I've already got the comfort from doing hundreds of podcasts. It's still new and scary to me, just like anyone who, if they were like, hey, do you want to come on our show? I'd be terrified out of my mind. I'd do it, but I'd be terrified out of my mind, you know? So I this is kind of a challenge / win, is that even though this is only episode 9, I'm going to take that as a really big win for me, because it is. Like I said, I haven't backed out of it. I've stayed on it. I've given everything I can give on the topic at hand for the week, that kind of thing. We don't back away from stuff. So, do you have a win for the week of any kind? I'm sure you do. Of some sort,
I actually already emailed you guys about it earlier this week.
Oh, did you? I'm terrible about
and
checking.
I got a response from Jen on
Oh,
it.
yeah. Jen usually responds on the emails. I forget to look at them because I have the Salty Language stuff I deal with, like, through the week, so I tend to forget to look at the emails from this show. So, do you have it? Okay.
Yeah, it was. I actually did some recording this week on the last tune on the album.
Oh, nice.
And I'm so happy to say that, because it literally is. That's become my immovable object.
Yeah.
That's my challenge. It's
right.
like, here's this huge thing. It's literally the giant elephant, gorilla, whatever you want to call him, in the room, just hanging out there. And so this week I got the guitar and my amps and everything set up, and I had to fix some things. That happened on Sunday, and Monday I started putting some guitar tracks down.
Nice.
And then now, like we were talking earlier, this is my third podcast. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm like, okay, I haven't done anything since then, unfortunately.
Right.
But
right.
but like you said, this is also part of, to me, this is part of my purpose. I'm talking about, and this kind of comes back to what you were talking about as far as this being a challenge for you. If you're still in the work in progress phase, that's even harder. Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways, I've done a lot of my work. I'm actually pretty well rehearsed. Yeah. I heard Nickel on he did his Stranger Conversations with Grant, and he paid me a very nice compliment, and he said, Heno sounds so well, like he has it, like he articulates it so well. And I'm like, yeah, I've been sharing my experiences for 8 years in meetings straight.
Yeah.
I am well rehearsed.
Yeah.
It's not like I have some gift. It's just I've put in the hours talking about my life and my recovery and changes. So yeah, I mean, if you saw me in those first couple of years, it was rough.
Yeah, sure.
And I do things where I've made a point of doing this once a year, and the first ones are scary, where I go up in front of a group of people and I tell my story.
Oh yeah, okay.
My whole story,
sure.
And I let it go where it goes. I don't rehearse it. I don't write it down. But it's been very important for me because, it allows me to practice that so that I can, come on to a podcast and share my experiences in a way that's a little more, put together.
Yeah. You're not as all over the place as I am.
Yeah. But I did it in those times of work in progress, like what you're talking about. And so it is a big deal. Right. I consider those some of my biggest victories.
Yeah.
Because I was scared to death.
Right. And it's really similar, because standing up in front of a group, no matter the size, I get to hide behind a bit of anonymity by doing it on a podcast. It's not the same as standing in front of actual people. It's like telling jokes on a podcast versus doing stand-up comedy. Totally different beast, because there's no vibe in the room and whatever. Plus, I can add a laugh track. No, but yeah, I totally agree.
But you're still putting it out there.
But I'm still doing it, and part of it is, as we've said countless times on here, is hopefully someone is, if someone's in that position that I was in, that it was like, no, I'm alone. I can't go get help. One of the biggest things, I don't know if I've mentioned this, one of the biggest things that helped me was there's an online comic, it's a very popular one called Penny Arcade. And one of the guys, I can't remember if it's the guy who does the art or the writer, one of the two, I think it was the art guy, has dealt with anxiety and such for years and years and years. And his wife, her dream was always, she wanted to go to Paris. Like, she wanted to go see the Eiffel Tower and all, go visit Paris because it's romantic and all that. And there's just no chance he was going to do that because of his anxiety and stuff. The long plane ride and just sounds horrible to him, which I totally understand. And I'm reading this and I was like, yeah, so he made, at the beginning of a year, was like, I'm going to the doctor to get help with my anxiety because for our anniversary, we're going to France. Like, we're going to Paris. Like, that is my goal for the year. And he even says, like, I may not make it, but right now that's the goal. Is because it means so much to her that I want to do this for myself also. So it's, win-win. And it turns out, and he did. He went in, he got on medicine, and he wrote, like, this long blog about how he was afraid it would change his creativity, and his livelihood is his creativity. It's not like me where I'm not making any money off of any art I do at this point. He is, So if he becomes less creative, it could significantly alter his life. And he was like, I'm afraid of this. And he's like, people are always like, oh, just go to the doctor. And he's like, yeah, the problem with anxiety is you can't just go do things. He's like, once you go, you're fine, but you can't just go. And
it's your brain fighting yourself.
Exactly.
Again.
So it was, anyway, that was a big inspiration for me and kind of made me go, I totally get this guy. He's singing to me, just like the emo songs when you're in high school, it's like this guy, his writing is singing to me at this point. And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
So,
well, and you this week had an out. When Jen wasn't available, you could have said, "Yeah, we can skip a week," but you didn't.
And I, whereas on Salty Language, I'll be honest, I can't think of a time I actually had that same out because Tony hasn't missed he's missed a couple, he's missed a few, but some of the ones he missed, Tate was part of the show. So that the show was still going to go on.
Still able to do it,
Yeah, and I would have anyway because I love talking with her and I love talking with Tony. So I was like, well, still win, And you're right. When Jen said, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to do this week. Do you want to just take a week off?" I could have been like, "Oh, thank God, yes."
Well, yeah, because a week off from bearing my soul to people.
Yeah. It's funny though.
Strangers
didn't even cross my mind.
See, there you go.
Not even a bit.
That's a huge victory.
First thought I had was, I'm going to see if Heno wants to come back on because I figure we could talk about this topic. And not that Jen has nothing to add, but she hasn't really dealt with withdrawal the way we have. Now, she saw me go through it, so she could have obviously added that. But it's still, I figured this would be a great topic for us to talk about. So and still give, a good show without seeming like it's fluff or something.
Well, part of my that claiming my little victory this week, which is so here's my problem with claiming little victories. Then the part of me that sabotages everything, El Destructo, wants to do a mic drop, and then a month later, nothing else has happened.
I totally get you. Perfect example. 2 weeks ago, my little victory was I drew. Right, I've drawn nothing since.
So my challenge for myself for this week is follow up that victory with some more work. I have to.
Yeah,
I have to.
I'm going to go the same road as far as like a challenge for the week because we always like to do those. And again, it's one of those where we put the challenge out there, but we don't put pressure to where it's like, oh, if you don't do it, we're not. Like, the next week, we're not, oh, come on now, you need to, none of that. No judgment with it. It's just, this is what I want to do. And hopefully putting it out there makes you feel accountable for it. And mine's the same thing. It's either I want to draw, right? I still need to get a logo done for the enthusiasts for Salty Language. So I need to get something like that. I need some sort of a creative outlet for the week. So that's going to be my challenge this week. as it's been before, and I've been terrible. I need to get better about it.
Yeah.
But whatever. I mean, yeah.
I totally know exactly.
I know.
It's unreal.
Well, when you were on Salty Language or with the Enthusiast with us, you and I talked about this because we were joking. I think it was before the show. I don't remember if it was on it or not, but about how like I would get a logo done for this show, I think it was, or the Enthusiast, one or the other, when you finished your album. Like we would basically hit at the same time. So yeah, we're right on track.
and here's the funny thing is like, so on Sunday night or Monday, whenever I decided to like, okay, I have everything set up. I'm back into it. I did, I have backing tracks that needed to be transferred over, settings and whatever it is. So I get all the work done, and I'm actually listening to it going, you know what, this is actually pretty good on its own. And I instantly think, yeah, but it'd be better if it was a half step down.
You got to look at the sign on the wall.
At square one.
Yep, you got to look at the sign on the wall, though.
I know.
Finished is better than perfect or perfection.
Exactly.
I forgot which it says, but
yeah. And I sat there and I was like, "Yep, there you go, Hanno. There's typical thing, right there. It's actually pretty good on its own." But
I get it. I've done that so many times with especially when I was in art school. When you do something for school, and I get done with it, and I'm like, "That's good enough to turn in," and then I'm like, yeah, but I could really, I could go back in and fix the nose. And that's what, there's a pretty famous comic book artist. He mostly does covers, but he's done interiors too. His name's Adam Hughes. And he doesn't keep generally any of his art. He sells off everything he does because all he does when he looks at it is go, this could be better. I could have done this. I could have and why live that way? Why nitpick yourself to death when by selling it, he's making someone incredibly happy. And, you can just look at the internet and go, yeah, everybody loves your work. Or not everybody, but tons of people love your work. Just be happy in that. Like, don't nitpick yourself with the other. Even though I know, as any sort of creative person, you're always going to nitpick yourself. So, anyone who does anything, podcasting, music, art, doesn't matter what it is, you're just going to, that could have been a little better.
Yep.
It doesn't quite look as much like that guy as it could have. I could have, I look at my stuff now, and I'll send somebody a link to my DeviantArt page, which has my art on it, and, they're like, oh, wow, that's so good. I'm like going, no, it's really not. Yeah. I half-assed that. I know in my head, it's like, I didn't even put in a third of the work I should have put in onto that. And you're only saying it's good either because you're nice or because you aren't inclined in that area, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to sound, I don't know what the word is here. I don't want to sound like I'm talking down my nose at anybody, but it's,
no.
You know what I mean? I know you get it, yeah.
It's the part where we actually don't like getting compliments.
Yes.
Because it makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because we're putting a value on it.
Yeah.
And we're putting a judgment on the person giving the compliment.
Yeah.
So we're putting all these values to it when a simple thank you
right.
would finish it all. And that was one of my lessons for myself is with insecurities and stuff is just to learn to just say thank you.
Yeah.
And because the person is honestly from their heart giving me a compliment, they're actually opening themselves up to say, hey, this is, and my initial reaction is to dismiss it, diminish it, start explaining it,
right.
All this stuff.
Yep.
And I learned that, saying thank you just takes care of all of it.
Yeah, I had never thought about that. Like somebody paying you a compliment, they're really making themselves vulnerable doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I had never really given that any thought. You're totally right, yeah.
And so
because you could crush them so easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what are we doing when we start saying, "Oh, it was nothing," or "Oh, that thing, oh, that was just me half-assing it." You know what I mean? Because that's what I would do because I was the one that was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yet I'm not. So somebody's offering me a gift.
Yeah.
And I'm not accepting it.
Yeah, you're deflecting it is what you're doing.
I'm deflecting
and
the
depending
gift.
on what you respond with, you're either deflecting it or you're just taking it and stomping on it.
Yeah.
I mean, without even meaning to, because you're really not generally. It's generally that you're just so uncomfortable in yourself, essentially, that you're like, oh, stop it. It's like, it's like, you see the athletes and like, wow, what a great game. And you're like, oh, the team had it today and we just blah. It's like, maybe we should just go with those answers, just be like, hey, my markers really gave me all they had today. And, No, I'm kidding.
But that's. I'll offer this. I'll offer that challenge. Since we just talked about that, I'll offer that challenge to anybody that knows what I'm talking about. About being uncomfortable with a compliment is next time somebody does, look them straight in the eye and say, "Thank you. I appreciate that."
Yeah.
And don't say anything back.
Yeah.
You don't need to give a compliment back. Accept the compliment into your heart wholeheartedly and walk away.
Right.
That's a practice.
That's so funny because you just saying that, and I'm in my head thinking of situations. It's making me anxious.
Yeah,
it really does because it almost feels like a mic drop. You know, kind of like it just feels like it takes a lot of guts to do that. Like, just thank you very much. You know, and just walk away. Just drop the mic. You're done. You're done.
Yeah. Don't give one back. Don't beat around the, none of that stuff. It is so hard.
Heno just came on here and dropped the hardest challenge the show has had. But a great one, a really good one to put into service. Because you're right. It's like I said, I had never considered how vulnerable somebody is when paying a compliment. And you really, without meaning to, are spitting on them in a lot of ways. Yeah, that's wow. Well, here we go. We brought Heno on to, so we can all learn to not be a jerk.
See, I have a purpose now.
Yeah. You can find Heno at hownottobeajerk.com.
Yeah.
Site's under construction, though, because I haven't finished it.
Let me know when we're up and running.
Yeah. Do you have the music for it?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll get to it.
So what would you give to, as far as, based on your experience with the, what are we calling them again? The discontinuation symptoms.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah.
Like how, what would you say to somebody, I mean, we obviously talked about, it's like, okay, this is something you don't do. This is something that you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But if somebody is about to start on this, they're feeling like they're at that point where, you know what, I'm finally feeling better. I've been doing this for years. Maybe I, want to come off of this. What advice would you give them besides the usual do it with a doctor?
Yeah. I actually have had this happen because as I was talking about it when it was originally happening, I would post stuff on Twitter and stuff about it, and every person I had, and I didn't put the medicine I was on. I just put that I was going through from an antidepressant. I had 4 people contact me. All 4 of them, Effexor.
Wow.
Yeah, every one of them. And again,
wow.
I'm not trying to slander a company here. It was just what happened. And so, and again, if you're on it and it works great for you, that's up to you and your doctor to make those decisions. I'm not in any way saying you should run and get off of it. Talk to your doctor. If you don't like the side effects and you're feeling them, talk to your doctor. Don't talk to me about that. But I've had people go, I actually had one that was like, my insurance won't cover this anymore, and I'm going to have to go off of it. What do I have to expect? And I'm like, do you have any left? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, take small doses as best you can. Cut it to half or something, because even just doing that is going to probably make a big difference. And again, like you said, we're not advocating in any way. Please, if you can go talk to a doctor about it, or a pharmacist maybe even. I don't know how that exactly can work, but, there's probably someone online or forums you can talk to with doctors and such about this too. Obviously, you got to be careful because, you can't see credentials. But that's what I told them was pretty much like try to step it down. Or go from a pill if you're on, like I was on 2 a day. So cut to 1 a day, something like that. Or because you can't really cut the pills I was on because they're capsules. They're not really like a pill that you could, physically cut. But maybe do something like that. And again, don't be alone. Don't be alone.
Huge.
That's the best thing you can reach out to me if you need someone to talk to, as we always say on the show. Or, find, like I've mentioned various times, there's that website called 7 Cups of Tea, I believe it is, that's got a lot of people that are just there to talk if people need someone to talk to, kind of a thing, which is such a great asset to the world, because that's using the internet for one of the better purposes, having a network or a net if you need one, because most people, when you're playing with stuff in life, you're playing without any sort of a safety net.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that. Obviously, like you said, go talk to your doctor first if you can. If you can't, don't don't go cold turkey if you can. Try to cut it down first. And even then, and depending on the other medicines you might be on, you may find that you deal with other things that I haven't dealt with. So, and there is information on withdrawal from like Effexor or whatever, any medicine you're on. If you just type in your drug and the word withdrawal, I'm sure you can find. Yeah. There's probably a subreddit on Reddit for it. It's like. Exactly. So that's what I would say. Just be very careful. Yeah.
And sharing it with that's such a big thing as family and friends is just saying, hey, I'm doing this. I have no choice.
Right.
Will you watch out for me? Will you let me know if something unusual is happening, and I'll let you know.
Exactly. Call in and check on me every day, something like that.
Yeah. Agree to be accountable to somebody. Yeah. Say, I'm going to call you every morning, or I'm going to, even if it's just, I'm just going to send you an email and let you know how things are going or something.
Yeah. Well, that's usually what I ask people is, do you have a good support system? Yeah. And if they say yes, then I go, then make sure you tell the people in your support system that you're making this change. I may not need anything, no big deal, probably whatever. But like you just said, can you check on me once in a while? Can we just call, give me a call or text me, hey, how you doing, whatever type of thing. And that's it. But like you said when you were on our show before, when you change the rules in a friendship, you have to notify everybody of the rule change. So if you're going to be going through a withdrawal thing, you're going to be cranky, this, make sure you tell people. Say, hey, you may even, depending on your privacy levels with the people you work with, maybe
it's
mention,
true.
Jen, I know went through this. Like when she went on a different medicine, she told the people she works with, she was like, hey, I'm bipolar, I'm medicated, but I'm changing my medicine a little bit, so you may notice a difference.
And everyone ran out of the room.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But it's those kind of things. Yeah. Definitely. The support system is so important to somebody with mental illness. It's so important. It's so hard to maintain, though, because it takes a lot of work on both sides, and it takes more work than a normal friendship does.
Yeah.
Because you've got a big block in between you. Both sides are trying to move that immovable object, really, Yeah. And even with your combined forces, you just become bookends sometimes. Yeah,
and you're fighting against basically your natural state of being, which is leave me the freak alone.
Yeah, I know you have the best intentions, but I don't care. As horrible as that sounds, that's almost what it becomes. So we should probably wrap it up here. We're just over an hour and a half here. Good talk there. Thank you for coming on again, and joining me on or co-hosting here or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It was a real treat again.
Yeah, I love what you guys do over at Angela's. I just love, like I told you before, I love seeing other people happy. It really it does your heart good to see other people find happiness, whether it's in relationships or just anything in life. Just people finding, because there's so much negativity shoving at you all the time. That when you can just kind of shove that away and be good, it's a tough racket for a lot of people,
Yeah.
So, where you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm just gonna for this one is if you want to get a hold of me on Twitter, I'm at Idahenno, IDAHENNO. And I'm also on Facebook, Henno Heiter, and I'm an open book with all this stuff. Anyone has a question, get a hold of me. And Angela's awesome podcast, since it's the most relevant to this. We really,
it really is.
It's a health and wellness podcast, but we are really the source we're coming from is about positive, sustainable changes in our lives, whatever it is, whether it's physical habits, eating habits. Mental changes, like we've talked about here, is making those little tweaks to get a better outlook. That's what we really work on, and we'd always love to have more listeners.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I love, I think Angela said it on the most recent one, is she throws a lot of stuff at you on a lot of these episodes, even though it's about an hour most of the time. There's times where it really feels like you almost get, I don't want to say overload, but that's what you do when you do these kind of things. A lot of times you throw a lot of stuff about a new topic at somebody, and then you got to kind of pick and choose. But I love her attitude about, hey, I do this, and this. It may not work for you, but maybe this does, or this does, even if all of it doesn't. We're throwing all this at you just to show you the options and then you can kind of, and I really dig that about your show, is that it's not this is the only way,
Yeah.
It's very rarely one direction street,
Yeah. Because that's I mean, here's the truth is we were given suggestions, sometimes strong suggestions, about a path to recovery.
Yeah.
Both of us did. If we were told this is how you have to do it, and you have to do this, this, and this, we would have lifted the middle finger and walked out of the room.
Well, you gave a great example on the newest episode. I keep referencing it. Everyone go listen to it. When you were talking about was it kayaking or canoeing?
The kayak, yeah.
That's about how you have to pay attention to the person and then teach what technique will work for them. And
natural tendency.
Yeah, and I've always felt for school and stuff that works so much better too. When the teachers kind of lay back, see what the students do, and then go, okay, this is the best way. Because some people are more visual, some are more, they're better giving them a textbook. So. Yeah.
And one thing I haven't mentioned much is but it's really applicable here is Angela has a blog. And generally our podcast episodes are based off that blog. So if you're not into podcasts or you just want to give a little look, if you go, it's goingtoangelas.com and go on to her, and it's right on the top. It'll say blog. You can go peruse all of her blogs that she's ever done and do a little reading if you're not into podcasts or if you just want to, kind of see what direction she comes from.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. I keep meaning to do that more with this show, whether it's before or after we do it, kind of a recap, or it's a beforehand kind of hey, this is what we're going to be talking about, and I keep forgetting to do it. It's right there with doing art and music, and one of these days, yeah. Yeah, that's a great point though, because you're right. A lot of the stuff, as you said, she references, like I talked about this in my blog and stuff. So, yeah. And like I said, if you dig the positivity we try to bring here, definitely go check them out. Because they're, like I said, it's amazing how many times our shows have overlapped.
Totally.
And not on purpose, because I try not to listen to other podcasts on the days like right before I'm going to podcast, or like yours. I try not to listen to that until after we're done so that I don't pull too much. Like today, I'm citing yours like crazy. But part of that's because you're here, but also because, again, there's a good overlap. So I don't think that's a bad thing. So, I guess with that, we've done our challenges. We've done our wins for the week. So I guess I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Well, again, one last time I'll say I'm not a doctor, or we're not doctors. We're not therapists. We're not, well, I don't know if you're licensed to be a counselor. I've never asked you, but I'm just assuming. Generally, we're not. If you need help, please seek it. Check out, if you're in a bad way. If you don't have a support system, there's always a suicide hotline number. There's a 7 Cups of Tea. You can reach. Oh, I don't have all the show stuff. I forgot to write it down.
I just looked it up. The Crazy Life Podcast at Outlook.com.
Right, that's our email. The website is
email.
The website, I believe, is Crazy Life Podcast, or the Crazy Life at Weebly.com. You can contact Jen if you'd like to on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. You can find me at Stunami. Any of us, or I'm sure if you needed something, I'm sure Heno, definitely, we're all here to help, because we don't, we hate to hear a story about somebody not, there's nothing more that just rips at you than hearing about somebody that feels like they have no other options. And because I understand, I've been there. I fight to not go back to that place. So if you're there, please reach out. But if you need professional help, please seek it. See your doctor, a therapist, something of that, measure, because you're not alone. You're important to us, and Heno's getting all the love now.
Did you just hear that?
I did.
I was mute my mic.
Heno's getting smoochies, so we got to go here. And
that was a good night kiss. Mwah.
So, with that, we'll hope to see you back next week, and thanks for joining us.